days. But, sir, the winds of change are blowing, and some of the honorable comrades have come to their senses, supporting the people-centered plan of this PPPC government. Mr. Speaker, the honorable opposition leader, and I want to wash him in the face and say this, in the January 18, 2025 Culture News, described the budget as lacking. So I wondered, sir, whether he and I were reading the same document. The Honorable Mr. Norton reportedly said that the whooping 30% increase in the income tax threshold would not benefit the ordinary man, though in the same article, he said the threshold should be significantly increased. Sir, he must have missed that the 2025 adjustment relieves 22,000 workers from paying taxes, placing an additional $8.5 billion in their pockets. That's almost 400,000 more for these workers annually. Additionally, per worker. Additionally, reducing the income tax rates put another $3.6 billion in workers' pockets, and a further $1 billion will accrue to families with children. Furthermore, sir, $1.1 billion will be kept by our hard-working workers who work overtime or a second job. Aggregately, those interventions alone will enrich the working class by a further $14.6 billion. Evidently, sir, the honorable member could not have been reading from the document presented to this august body. In the same Culture News report, the honorable member described the old age pension as a joke. The fact is that this PPPC government doubled old age pension between 2020 and 2025, a far cry from what the APNU AFC government promised in its first 100 days, but could not deliver in 5 years. I also observe Shadow Minister, Finance Minister, the Honorable Jurita Finance, describing Budget 2025 as cut and paste. Sir, she, like her leader, had to be reading some other document. Mr. Speaker, the PPPC program is eloquently captured by the budget team, a secure, prosperous, encapsulate the budget's programs, policies, and speak to the PPP's trust since its formation in 1950. This budget builds on the advances of the past and present PPPC administration and provides a practical plan for our nation. This in stark contrast to the collusion budget, which lacked coherence and vision. The Honorable Member of Finance brushed aside the coalition poor performance, contending that their aggregate spending was less than 2025 budget. We should not forget, sir, that the coalition spent some $1.2 trillion during its term. But what can they show for that money? Where are the benefits to our people? Mr. Speaker, the honorable members on the other side of the House gets aggravated when it is said that they did nothing. So, sir, I will not say that, because they did a lot. Yes, Mr. Speaker, they did a lot of evil things.
That's correct.
Sir, in their 5 years, only 7,000 Guyanese benefited from house lots, a number this PPPC government surpassed in less than 1 year. In their time too, sir, not one single secondary school was completed, with several being built under this government. Not one well in the hinterland was drilled, and the list of strategies can continue. Unlike the sordid past of the PNC, APNU AFC misrule. This budget, like previous PPPC budget, was excitingly anticipated as Guyanese look forward to what new benefits would be rolled out. Indeed, this budget has not failed to deliver. This is a working people's budget. This is a budget with no new taxes, unlike when APNU AFC imposed massive increases in taxes and fees on the backs of the ordinary people. And what they did with the wealth, Mr. Speaker, they rented a bond, yes, a condom bond, from one of their friends, and lavishly spent on food and refreshment. There is the infamous Durban Park, the scales reportedly purchased from a backer, those unsuitable drainage pumps, and not forgetting the 7,000 odd workers they put on the streets, sugar workers. Sir, they use every opportunity to pinch from the treasury. I use the word pinch, sir, because I cannot use the unparliamentary word to properly describe their actions. Sir, it is not about how much you spend or did not spend, but it is how it was spent. Without hesitation, Mr. Speaker, I say that the PPPC administration, past, present, and no doubt future, have and will remain allied with the people, putting their interests above all. The PPPC is spending to ensure that greater development reaches all Guyanese. In drawing a contrast, Mr. Speaker, I wish to point out the following. In 2019, the education sector was allocated 53.2 billion. 2025, 175 billion. 229% increase. Health sector, 2019 allocation was 35.9 billion. 2025, 142.3 billion. 297% increase. Housing in 2019, 1.7 billion allocated. 2025, 112.6 billion. 6,523% increase. And water in 2019, 2.9 billion allocated. Allocation in 2025 is 23.1 billion, representing 696% increase. These numbers tell a story. They are a clear demonstration of bettering our people's lives and ensuring that the nation's wealth is used judiciously. New hospitals and schools are being built, and roads and bridges are being repaired and rehabilitated. Government services are expanding. Life is becoming easier, and the Guyana we dreamt of is quickly becoming a reality.
That's correct.
Mr. Speaker, workers in particular have not been excluded from the whirlwind of activities. This year alone, in addition to previous initiatives, workers and their families will benefit from an increase in the school child grant, the introduction of a universal health voucher, support for newborn babies, the abolishment of bridge tolls, the highly anticipated reduction in electricity tariffs, increase income tax threshold, and lower tax rates, exemption of income tax on overtime and a second job up to 50,000 respectively per month, among other things. Alongside these improvements, sir, workers' pay levels are ascending. Through collective bargaining, the government and several unions have concluded multi-year agreements which advance substantial improvements in workers' earnings. This is apart from improvements in several other benefits accruing to the workers. Between 2024, sir, public servants have seen their aggregate earnings increased by $100 billion, a substantial jump. Of course, the members, again excluding the Deputy Speaker, will lament these improvements. A few weeks ago, Honorable Member Ms. Coretta MacDonald, speaking at an opposition leader press conference on December 13, 2024, claimed that the government does not understand collective bargaining. I am unsure what she meant. Sir, she must have lost her way, because there are several images and videos of the honorable member wearing another cap and engaging in collective bargaining with the Ministry of Education. Those engagements led to a multi-year agreement, which she alluded to at the same press conference. Mr. Speaker, permit me to ask the Honorable Minister of Education if I should let the members on the other side of the House know that their MP was offering herself to be the PPPC Prime Ministerial candidate. Sir, I have to ask my colleague and friend which cap she will choose to wear, MP or General Secretary, as clearly her union rules prevent her from wearing both. Mr. Speaker, with pride, I wish to say to this House, our Prime Minister is a man of integrity with no baggage. But unfortunately, I cannot say the same thing about my colleague on the other side of the House. Mr. Speaker, the opposition has sought to discredit Budget 2025 without any rationale. I ask, aren't these elected leaders not seized with any responsibility? Are they concerned about the well-being of our nation?
Honorable Member, for you to continue, you'll need 5 minutes and conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask for my colleague to have 5 minutes to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Teixeira. You may proceed, Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, these questions are important, as in a few months, the people of this country will call upon to elect leaders committed to the people. I'm confident that the Guyanese people have seen through and through the facade and will democratically elect the PPPC for another term in office to ensure that the program of development exuberantly implemented by the government is sustained. Mr. Speaker, I cannot discuss Budget 2025 without addressing the sugar industry. The industry's performance in 2024 had not lived up to expectation. Under the new leadership of the new CEO, several interventions are being made to improve production and productivity. This demonstrates a new level of thinking and innovation was being pursued. Additionally, this skill set is being augmented by technical support from Cuba and India. Sir, I am aware that several efforts are underway to enhance revenues. I'm advised that the industry's focus on value added will be strengthened this year and new product lines will be launched. There are also efforts to increase market availability and expand into new markets with the region and beyond, particularly among the diaspora in North America. These are tangible efforts to reorient the industry towards greater direct consumption sugar, which attract premium prices. Additionally, efforts to cultivate new high-yielding varieties, new planting techniques, and greater use of drone and aircraft in herbicide and cane ripening will expectedly reduce costs and improve productivity. A significant development is mechanization, which holds great promise. Several thousand already been converted, and Budget 2025 anticipates continuing this process. This initiative is important for the industry to remain competitive and to enhance the productivity of its workers. Mr. Speaker, consistent with its commitment to its manifesto this year, the PPPC government will advance efforts to resume cane cultivation at the Skeldon Estate. Sir, you will recall that the coalition government closed the Skeldon Estate, Rosal Estate, East Demerara Estate, and Wales Estate between 2016 and 2017. Some 7,000 sugar workers were put on the breadline in the largest retrenchment exercise in post-independence Guyana. Already, the PPPC government has reopened Rosal Estate, and in a phased manner, operations at Skeldon Estate will restart. This is what commitment is about, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Minister of Agriculture, you have returned the smiles to the face of thousands of Guyanese in the sugar belt. Thank you, and thank you, PPPC government. Against that background, Mr. Speaker, I fully support the allocation of 13.3 billion to the sugar industry. The legacy of resource starvation and spitefulness under the coalition still haunts the industry. Essential components were left to fail, investments in the field and factories were restricted, and the workers were treated as outcasts. Had the coalition sustained the momentum of 2024 and 2014 and 2015, which it inherited, today we'd have been talking about the sugar industry in a different way. Rather than to continue to nurture the industry, APNU AFC turns its back and waited for its collapse. The importance of sugar to the country, and particularly to the communities in the sugar belt, cannot be underestimated. The scars of closure and joblessness still haunt many who are affected. I'm heartened that the vestiges of the estates with teeming activities have returned at Rosal and soon in a greater way at Skeldon. Indeed, sir, for me the closure period of 2016-2017 was one of the most depressing periods of my life. I participated in the redundancy meeting with the workers and saw men reduced to tears when told they were being sent home. I bonded with the workers and their families on the picket lines, marches and meetings across the sugar belt. Mr. Speaker, it was a period of heartlessness, a dark time in the history of our nation. Today,
Don't want to be heartless, but I'll give you 30 seconds to conclude.
indeed, the budget has set the bar high, and much will be done in the coming weeks and months. At the end of it all, there will be a bright future for all Guyanese, both present and future. I thank you very much, Comrade Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, Mr. C. Paul. And now for the Honorable Member, Ms. Coretta MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague who just spoke is reminding us that he lived with his grandmother. Maybe his grandmother didn't teach him to speak the truth and to speak it always. You see, we rubbed shoulders together in the labor movement. And the brother should have said to us how many times between 2020 and 2024 GAU was on strike. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I rise to add my voice to warnings and cautions over this dangerous fiscal forecasting, which is another step in saddling this country with debt that will last our generations, many, many generations, for a long, long time, with nothing significant to show. Sir, I am deeply honored to stand before you today to do this, my sixth presentation. In doing so, sir, I recognize the strength I continue to gain, not only from God, but from my family and all the citizens across this country, even those who are supporters of the PPP. Mr. Speaker, allow me to salute the people of Guyana who continue to perform miracles, trying to survive the last 5 years of clueless, uncaring, and incompetent government. At this point, Mr. Speaker, it is safe to say that we are unfortunately within the midst of the worst administration in the history of governance in this country. Sir, Edmund Barton was keen to point out, and I quote, "Creating a nation requires the will of the people," end of quote. Based on the damning evidence, Mr. Speaker, that emerged from the account of the 2020 elections, we know that this installed regime cannot boast of having the will of the people. Sir, the PPP is like a well-dressed up mannequin. But sir, when you take off the clothing, you see their real nakedness. Mr. Speaker, I do not take lightly to the responsibility that is invested in us. We are of the view that our responsibility is to build quality education, is to build a quality educated nation, is to have proper health care, proper infrastructure, and an economy to strengthen the social fabric and protect our environment, and to deliver public services effectively, efficiently, and in a manner that reflects good governance. That's the responsibility of any sitting government. Bearing this in mind, Mr. Minister, we were shocked on January 17th, 2025, when the purported Minister of Finance stood at the lectern and delivered a long, vacuous presentation that put even his colleagues to sleep. As they slept and the minister sipped glasses of water, Mr. Speaker, he swallowed the misinformation being digested. A frightening reality was thrusted upon this nation. The honorable member presented a budget titled "A Secure, Prosperous, and Sustainable Guyana." The honorable member, Mr. Speaker, spent hours abusing and cussing imaginary enemies and devoted maybe 1 hour to budgetary matters. Sir, we were reminded why the position of the Minister of Finance should be for a technocrat and not someone who dabbles in the huskings of campaigning at every turn. Sir, almost after 5 years of the PPP rule, Guyana's public debt increased.
Honorable member, just give me a minute. Just asking that cameraman. We just asked him to move. He just went one step. Take the chair at the back, or we'll put you out. You may continue, honorable member.
Sir, after almost 5 years of the PPP rule, Guyana's public debt increased to 5.993 billion, a 167% increase from 2023. Nothing has been secured. There is no prosperity, and this madness and clear lack of planning cannot be sustained. The intellectual authors of this titled budget, sir, were sitting in their AC seats, and I suspect they were having the finest of security guarding them, while the masses of the Guyanese people sit there still waiting to have a meal. They must have been thinking, Mr. Chair, prosperity being experienced by family, friends, and favorites. And ultimately, they must have thought of sustaining the wanton transfer of state resources to their friends, their families, and their favorites. Sir, the title of this budget reflects how out of touch these wealthy controllers of state wealth are. The budget, I would presume, sir, should be named a secure, prosperous, and sustainable Guyana for friends, families, and favorites. Sir, after this pie in the sky presentation, the nation asked a collective question. What is the Honorable Minister Ashley talking about? After this government would have spent $4,609 billion to date, the rate of severely malnourished children under 5 years has increased. Imagine in this oil economy. Children now, sir, are hungrier than they were before 2020. The oil money is here, sir, and the masquerade is wanton with the fiscal wastage. The poverty rate, sir, requires at 48%. Hence, the question is being begged again. What is he talking about? Sir, victimization is everywhere. And if you don't like their Facebook pages, and if you don't comment, then you are dead in your boots. And that is real. Sir, when we look across at some of the ministries, Ministry of Education, for example, staff and others, they are warned. They are told in no uncertain terms when they like other pages and when they comment on other pages. And that's a fact. If you are remotely associated with the opposition, no contracts for you. Sir, the victimization has moved to the private sector. Those who are deemed to be anti-government because they speak up about the abuses are denied jobs even there in the private sector. Sir, the talk around the town that once you are in the famous Black Book, which is lodged at Freedom House, you shall have no part. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member told us all is well and well in the Republic of Guyana. We still wonder, what are they talking about? Sir, the transfer of state resources from public to private pockets is on the rise and never has been seen in the history of this nation. This practice is part of the dreaded word that is being banned from this house. That word which begins with C and ends with S. Sir, that word, sir, corruptions, sir, forgive me, that word, more than one. And I can understand why the member over there is behaving the way. But, sir, it refers to an evil act by an individual or a group that is most unworthy. The act, sir, prevents others from engaging in their rights. Furthermore, the word that begins with C, sir, includes activities like bribery or embezzlement. However, the word that begins with C, sir, and ends with N or S in many ways, most of us, sir, most of them are in positions of authority who create this confusion. Sir, it is estimated that for every 1 million committed to a project, about 600,000 ends up in the pockets of officials and selected members of private sector. Intelligence, which has reached our desk, sir, has stated that 15% is being demanded up front before the project is even given or before the building project goes out. Sir, the word that begins with C and ends with N and sometimes S is on the rise, especially with the people who enters government as mere paupers, but today they are millionaires and billionaires on the backs of hard-working Guyanese. The ruling elites and their government officials can now toast with champagne and attend diamond balls that cost millions and millions of dollars upon the ordinary worker who could not dare to show up at these diamond ball with their slippers. Us, sir, they could have been chased by the ruling party, which once stood there claiming that they are working for the poor. But sir has now been transferred in the party of the get rich quick or die trying. Sir, we in the opposition have been informed about the grand tricks of the contracts. We see glorious headlines about small contractors being awarded contracts in their communities. But on a practical, everyday level, if the project is worth $10 million, the small contractor gets a mere $1 million to just place their names on the document, and the work is being executed by large contractors who collect the great bulk of the money. Sir, with no infrastructure plan, the government seems to be driven by two considerations for infrastructure. One, political mileage, and two, money for the boys. So when the honorable member comes here and regales us about the grand happenings in this republic, we are forced to ask again, what is he talking about? Sir, after $4,609,000,000,000 spent in the carnival of fiscal wastage, blackout seems to be at its highest level. Our lives are being disrupted with constant blackouts, while the ruling elites in government and their private sector have purchased large contract generators to insulate themselves from the blackout caused by their wanton incompetence. It's not a matter of if anymore in this country, it's a matter of when there will be a blackout. During the time of the coalition, sir, you could have said to family members, if we get blackout, plug out the fridge. Today, there is no if, it is when we get blackout. Sir, this government does not understand your business is essential, so is your power. Power outages, short-term or long-term, can be detrimental. Power failures, Mr. Chairman, disrupts communications, water services, transportation, healthcare services, other offices, and the schools and teachers delivering in front of their classrooms. They may also cause businesses to shut down. Foods can spoil, sir, and certain electrical devices will stop working. Your appliances are often damaged. But this uncaring regime prefers to politicize the issue because they have their own big generators, which their contractor friends would have gifted them. So when the senior minister in the office of the president with responsibility for finance, who reports to the minister, stood here and presented the great misinformation, we cannot ask the question, we cannot keep asking the question, what is he talking about? Sir, on a normal day in Guyana, the government and its propaganda machine made a journey to Timeri to spread misinformation. It was all going good until they opened up the microphones and all the skeletons came rolling out. An honest, hard-working doctor spoke the truth. She detailed the horrors of the health sector, the lack of drugs, the lack of basic equipment, the empty medicine cupboards. What she detailed, sir, was the result after 4,609,000,000,000 would have been spent by the PPP. Her honest submission ran in stark contrast, sir, to the nice sound bites which they were accustomed to be hearing every day. Sir, the health sector is in a mess. Maternal deaths everywhere. The shortage of drugs continue to plague this society. Brand new hospitals with state-of-the-art equipment, and there are no basic drugs for simple headache in the cupboards. Sir, then the number of nurses per 10,000 remains at an alarming rate of 8 in 2024. Sir, do you know what this means at a practical level? It means that at the public hospitals, you will have one nurse doing a job that should be done by 10 nurses. Sir, this is why the nurses are beating out to find greener pastures. What is the Honorable Minister speaking about? Sir, the grand cash grants, which the PPP believes will end poverty in this country, is now proving to be a grand national trick. Poverty will not move from its 48% rate unless the structure of the economy changes. The economy is structured for those who have monies to get more monies, and those who don't have to stay without. But we in the opposition continue to tell our people, Mr. Speaker, to take the monies because they belong to you. However, they cannot take the monies that are not forthcoming. The 100,000 cash grant has now succumbed to the C word, Mr. Speaker, which has been banned in this House. People are complaining of being registered since the program started, and to date, no check has been made available. When these citizens heard the presentation of the budget, Mr. Speaker, there was a national questioning. What is the minister talking about? Sir, I come to the most exciting part of it, the education sector. Mr. Speaker, I believe it is one of the fundamental mistakes that this government made upon being installed, and that is to put the weakest link at the helm of such a critical sector. Sir, education outcomes are directly related to leadership. If the leadership is bad, there will be bad outcomes. As simple as that. We have seen nothing in the past 5 years to discredit this theory. Garbage in, garbage out. There is no good going around about this. Sir, a budget speech is a formal presentation. And here we are saying that this, sir, which the minister took all this time to present, did not tell us about their objectives that they would have obtained over that they would have achieved over the year. The budget presentation, sir, especially as it relates to the education sector, is expected to report whether the billions spent have achieved significant outcomes. The education sector is not like any other sector, sir. It is technical and ought to be driven by data. Sir, I know coming out of my presentation, it will evoke the loud noise and the views about the schools we have built and the views about how many students and learners we have fed. But sir, let me remind this House that all that is happening is they're continuing from where we would have left off. LFS Burnham, Mr. Speaker, introduced, for those of you who are too young to know, Cerex, hot milk, biscuits in schools. They have introduced, sir, exercise books and textbooks. Schools were built under the PNC. Schools were rehabilitated under the APNU. Schools and learning, effective learning, sir, took place during those times. Any country, sir, that is on a trajectory of grand education achievements should have a budget presentation that talks about monitoring and evaluation. It should talk about value for money and technocratic information that is tracked. Sir, when you look at pages 52, section B, to 57, to page 57, we see the problem, and that is why the sector is in such a mess. In this budget, sir, the cash is being splashed, but there is no indication of whether the investments over the past years have delivered expected outcomes. $1 billion here and $1 billion there, a school here and a school there. Sir, but there is no holistic evaluation of what occurs after the school is opened and the cameras are gone. Sir, this budget has once again confirmed to teachers that their work is not valued by this merciless regime. And the only hope lies in ensuring that they get registered and prepare to return the coalition to government. Sir, a quality basic education is fundamental and a non-negotiable factor. If we are to create the future for the country we wished for ourselves and for our future generations. Sir, the stark reality is one cannot be free if one is uneducated, and in any country, let alone Guyana. Yet this country, this government, continues upon a trajectory that consigns this essential portfolio to one of some, but of no real importance. And it would be by no stretch of the truth or imagination that one could state that Guyana has one of the world's most unequal systems in education. And this is despite a large portion of money being spent on this sector. Teachers, sir, in many instances, are teaching in classrooms with students that ought to be handled by several teachers. Sir, general literacy and mathematics literacy are at appalling level. Science and mathematics are being neglected, and the country is falling further and further behind in competitiveness in these most important fields. Sir, Guyana's secondary schools matriculation rate is less than 50%, meaning that fewer than half of the students who start high school don't graduate. It is against this backdrop, sir, in this budget that you can see where the problem is outlined. Sir, training of teachers. Sir, at 4.30 on page 55, the minister boasted about online training for teachers. Is the minister really aware of what he's talking about? Sir, is the minister on the ground to experience what our teachers are experiencing? I do not think so. The honorable member sees quality, sir. He sees quantity, sir, but quality is very far from his mind. Sir, let me offer some explanation to the minister. This country has 10 administrative regions with 11 education districts, and some are very remote than others. It is very difficult on most occasions for teachers in the hinterland to have access to technology to facilitate effective mandatory training. Teachers from the hinterland regions face their numerous challenges. And sir, what do we have? Pass them all because we need the numbers. Sir, the lack of access to technology remains a most significant problem. This problem became intense, sir, with the onset of COVID. And with all the trials and all the assistance that was put in place by the coalition, when this evil regime got into office, they leveled all of them and they removed some of them. And then every time they go around to blame the coalition that we did not do this and we did not do that and we did not do the other, but the facts are there. Tell us about the hubs that we put up there. Sir, all training went online and teachers in the hinterland could not access lots and lots of training due to the lack of basic technology. Sir, some of the areas lack the required technological infrastructure to participate in training online. Some teachers have to sign in on their phones, sir, use their own data, and that, sir, is proving to be effective. But yet, with all the billions that we are receiving in education, there is no kind of help or any help possible to assist these teachers. These are the things this budget should have been addressing. Conditions of work. When you read, sir, pages 52 to 57, it is clear that this government is convinced that throwing a few billions to construct. As I speak, sir, teachers are working in horrible conditions all across this country. And we've seen it, we've heard of it. The pigeons at several schools. The conditions in Bushlot Secondary where a beam fell on a parent. The pit latrines, sir, in this day, we are still having our children in crowded classrooms. In this day, sir, we are still having teachers who cannot have access to learning materials in order to perform their task. Sir, but we will hear about all the talks. We will hear about what we did and what we will do and what we will not do. But sir, are these measures effectively paying off to the teachers and the learners who are supposed to benefit from them? Sir, teachers report to their classrooms with no resources sometimes. Where are we putting those monies that are allotted in the budget? Sir, many times teachers are subjected to increasingly challenging behaviors, including verbal abuse and physical abuse from students, their parents, and even education officers. Sir, in this day and age, we cannot put proper systems in place to ensure that professionalism amongst our educators, their supervising officers, and even those who are supposed to man them are in place. It is all about a friend, a family, and somebody else who's close to us. Sir, teachers are in disorderly classrooms and experiencing escalating behaviors. Sir, significant disruptions to their lessons. Students' disengagement is on the decline, leading to stress, anxiety, and even physical injuries. Sir, teachers have to perform in classrooms with mosquitoes buzzing around their ears. Sir, teachers have to spend extra monies to purchase insect repellents. Sir, teachers are in classrooms risking their lives every day, opening the doors of a drawer with a snake inside. Sir, if you were to visit some of these schools, you would be appalled at what is happening. And it's facts, sir. We see them on social media every day. In some schools, as long as the sun is shining, it's all well and good. But when it rains, we have another problem. Sir, I want to use this platform, sir, to address a misguided narrative which is developing in this society, or continues to be misguided in this society. There is talk being encouraged by the government that teachers are enjoying brand pay with 3 paid vacations, which is a fact. But sir, what they just don't know is that even while there is a vacation period, teachers are still at work. Teachers have to attend a workshop here, a workshop there, and these are not planned workshops. These are workshops that happens when somebody just wake up in the morning and decide that you're going to have this. We are saying that this budget should cater for planned programs that is orchestrated in such a way that you have time frames in between all of them, and that teachers would be able to effectively benefit from the workshops that they have to attend. It is important for us to understand the concept of work that is being measured and the pay by which it should be given. Work commensurate with pay, which means that the level of responsibility and difficulty of a job should be proportional to the salaries offered. Essentially, sir, you should be paid fairly for the amount of work you are expected to do. The teachers are the surrogate parents, Mr. Speaker. They are the psychologist, the coach, the advisor, the uncle, the aunt, the doctor, the nurse, the policeman, the motivator, the friend, and so many more. Yet there is no comparison, and this is of no comparison to other jobs. Teachers are stressed every day. Every day they are stressed, and there are little or no means, sir, to assist our teachers. Many of our teachers are suffering from so many illnesses, and yet when the GTU would have asked the ministry to put a system in place, it was blatantly denied. Sir, good teachers rise early in the mornings to arrive at their schools so as to ensure that they are ready to receive their learners. But you know what, sir? When they stay out late to plan for the next day's work and they're early at school, their work performance, the conditions at work, it doesn't measure up to what they're expected to do. Mr. Speaker, good teachers care, those good teachers that care about education, they are working the hours of a CEO, but many of them are not receiving the pay of a CEO. Sir, the teachers of this land have raised all of us sitting here, and yet sometimes we show no recognition for the contributions that they have made when we pay them the kinds of salaries that we are paying them.
Honorable member, a good planned program says you will need 5 minutes extension to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thanks, Chief Whip. Honorable member, you may continue and conclude.
Sir, we have heard of the fundamentals of good education, being reading, writing, and arithmetic. I believe we need to look at the real fundamental, which is good for teachers to work. Mr. Speaker, at the heart of a strong education, there will be passionate teachers that are respected by their communities for the work they do. Mr. Speaker, when we look at what is happening in the education sector, you cannot help but cry. Sir, the regrading of teachers with improved qualifications remains stalled. The issuing of the bunching continues to be ignored. The process of the promised duty-free concessions for land for teachers who are qualified have not been properly implemented. Teachers in the hinterland, sir, still await their remote area incentive. The special needs teachers, sir, their allowance remains inadequate. Sir, I want to say to you and to the people of this country, to do part-time teaching in our technical institutes and even at the Cyril Potter College of Education, the fee is a meager $700 in one instance, a meager $1,000 in another instance, a meager $1,200 in another instance, and the alarming of all, sir, is $300 for transportation. Sir, where are we? What is happening with the monies that has been allocated? Sir, education, I must say again, is in serious trouble. Sir, I was to say, sir, I cannot support this budget allocation as it stands. in an economy as it stands, in an economy undergoing unprecedented transformation, this budget represents a failure to protect workers, a failure to ensure safe workplaces, a failure to account accuracy to the people of Guyana, a failure to our children, a failure to secure and sustain. Mr. Speaker, the people of Guyana have a window of opportunity that is opening to them, and that is that they should send this pending Squandermania group packing. Sir, I want to say to us that for the millions that would have been spent in education, we have a whole lot of wastage. Wrong mathematical tables, wrong information in our books. Sir, we stand here and we don't even know whether to say she is a preposition or she is a pronoun. But sir, I want to say that we still have these two books that are available so that the honorable member would be able to use them. Sir, in closing, I must say, education is in a mess. Education is in a mess. Out there with nothing tangible to hold on to. Mr. Speaker, victimization is at every level. Mr. Speaker, I must say to all of us, we cannot forget the stress that the PPP government put us through. Let's talk about what happened in the 2000s, the number of deaths. Sir, we must remember the Henry Boys, Ronald Waddell. We must remember Mr. Boston from Essequibo. But sir, you know what this government is all about? This is the government of the appeals. They appeal the cutting of the salaries for the nurses in Linden. They have appealed the amount given to the Quindon Bacchus's family. They have even gone to appeal, sir, the teacher's case, and that, sir, they have lost it. Sir, I want to say to you, and I want to say to all of us here, this budget, sir, the people of Guyana have had almost 5 years to see what happens when the People's Progressive Party is in power. They have come to recognize, sir, that the crumbs doesn't taste the same way as the loaf. Sir, this is characterized, the People's Progressive Party, their leadership has been characterized as a group with a lack of vision, a lack of planning, and above all, a lack of care for the people of this country. This budget, Mr. Speaker, doesn't present anything that the people of Guyana can hold on to. This budget, Mr. Speaker, is a mere cut and paste fiscal operation. Sir, the people in this country have recognized who the PPP are. They have recognized, sir, that buildings will not ease our problem. What they have recognized is that prudent management is what is needed to run this country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, Ms. MacDonald. And now for the Honorable Minister of Education, the Honorable Priya.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. 35 minutes of nothingness. We just celebrated, Mr. Speaker, International Day of Education, and the theme was how to incorporate AI sensibly in education. The honorable member clearly meant to pay homage to that theme. She missed the part with sensibly. Mr. Speaker, here is my AI piece for the honorable member. And I quote from ChatGPT. As the Minister of Education, it is both my duty and my privilege to uphold the principles of integrity, fairness, and respect for the rule of law, especially within organizations tasked with representing the interests of our nation's teachers. Today, I am compelled to address a matter that threatens the credibility of the Guyana Teachers Union and undermines the trust placed in those chosen to serve its members. Coretta MacDonald, the
Honorable Minister, just to remind visitors in the gallery that they should not be recording or transmitting from the chamber. We have our own media to so do. You may continue.
I don't see staff of the ministry recording, sir, but
Minister, we can exchange again words. If I am saying and cautioning members in the gallery, you are now telling me you're not seeing them? Come on.
Mr. Speaker, it's your job to caution them. I can't tell them anything. I don't.
I made a ruling, an observation.
Your ruling
not
is respected,
at you.
sir. It's not being challenged. Your ruling is respected, and I would expect everyone to respect it.
But you said you didn't see nobody.
And I didn't. You want to force
I didn't
me?
ask you if you saw anybody.
Lord. Coretta MacDonald.
This house here, I have to keep certain order in. And if I notice things are out of order, it is my duty, right, privilege to make the statement. I'll start you back from now.
Mr. Speaker, if you'd allow me,
Honorable Minister Teixeira, I wouldn't allow you. I wouldn't allow you. I wouldn't allow you. I don't know about Mahipal. I glance around here using the 12-second rule. And if I see 5 phones are out there recording, I don't have to call their names. I make a general statement. Minister, you can start now.
Coretta MacDonald, the current General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, has blatantly violated the union's constitution by continuing to hold this office despite her election as a member of parliament in 2020. The GTU constitution is explicit in its provisions, clearly stipulating under Rule 3 that no member of parliament may hold an elected office in the union except the position of immediate past president. This rule exists to prevent conflicts of interest, safeguard the union's independence, ensure there isn't corruption, I'm quoting, sir, and ensure its focus remains on the needs of its members, our teachers. By continuing to serve as General Secretary, Ms. MacDonald has not only ignored these constitutional provisions, but has also compromised the integrity of the union. Her dual role as a political figure and a union leader creates a glaring conflict of interest that cannot be ignored. How can the GTU effectively negotiate with the state on behalf of teachers when one of its senior representatives holds a partisan political position? Such a scenario breeds distrust and undermines the union's ability to advocate impartiality for its members. This was the person who came just now, sir, and I end my ChatGPT quote, came just now and righteously told us what is good for the education sector. Mr. Speaker, I want to pause here to recognize the work of Ashni Singh, recognize the work of his staff, recognize the work of the Budget Office, and particularly the Budget Director, who is female in this country. Ashni Singh is a celebrated economist, coveted the world over, and he sits with his staff to craft a budget. And when you have people coming here and vacuously saying that the budget makes no sense, it is not Ashni or Priya that they're addressing. It is the hard-working staff that they claim they represent, who sit in offices as technicians and craft the needs of this country. But Mr. Speaker, let's go to what the people say. What do the people say about the budget? January 23rd, 2025. The Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association is pleased to acknowledge the new measures introduced in the 2025 national budget, which promise to bring substantial benefits to employees and businesses alike. These initiatives reflect the government's commitment to addressing key concerns within the manufacturing and services sector. Let's turn the page, sir. Impressive rugby union enthused by budgetary allocation for sport. Budget 2025, a vehicle for continued growth and development, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. Private Sector Commission, heartened, Google that one, by targeted measures in Budget 2025. A monumental step forward, the Badminton Association hails $8 billion investment in sport. Budget 2025, a game changer for sport. National Sports Commission lauds $8 billion allocation to further advance sport. Powerlifting Federation commends government. And it goes on and on and on. But, Mr. Speaker, we have to go back, because it is important that we don't let the recreators of history speak to us. December 2nd, 2016, on the APNU's budget, the Stabroek News reported the PSC, Private Sector Commission, urges government to rethink harmful VAT proposal. Harmful start with H and it end with L. Budget in December, on December 4th, 2017. Budget 2018 offers nothing for ordinary Guyanese. Economist now deceased, Ramon Gaskin. December 7, 2016. Budget adds further burdens on Guyanese. Fitug. December 2nd, 2016, budget has no good news for minors, the GGDMA and the GMWO. Budget December 1st, 2016, Stabroek News, budget measures will have negative impact on growth and economy. Ram and McRae. November 29th, 2017. So notice, sir, this is from several years across the budgets of the APNU. Lots of concern over budget, private sector head. And he was it is a good discussion. It was a good discussion that we had, but we saw none of the recommendations in the budget. November 29, 2017, Stabroek News. Budget lacks clarity on incentive regime for private sector and job creation, City Chamber. And then let's do the better thing. Let's go to what the people say. The Stabroek News again, December 5th, 2016. Natasha Cato. As citizens, we are already taxed with so many things, even our basic necessities, food, clothing, etc. Now think about low-income families living in the rural areas. These families are oftentimes very large families. For a father or mother, work. Salaries already being taxed big time. Light bill and electricity bills are already enough, and to put added tax on these bills means added pressure for the breadwinner of the home. Think about those persons who don't have a stable job. What did she went on, I'm saying to implement tax on water and light is just not a smart idea, especially not when Guyana is known as the land of many waters. What did Christopher Martin France say? I have to say I'm against it. I'm hard-pressed to see exactly how this proposal is supposed to help citizens. Water and electricity are basic utilities. Why tax them further? Especially when we consider the fact that the service by GPL then already leaves so much to be desired as far as reliability goes. Alexis Deodat, I think this proposal for VAT on water and light is ridiculous. They took it away from some food items and persons thought it was all smooth sailing because the cost of living was made a little lighter for them, but now it's going to put pressure on the poor man's pocket.
And they want to know why.
Mr. Speaker, The PPP's budgets bring hope, bring creativity, bring innovation, bring a spark to businesses and people and humans alike. The APNU, AFC, PNC, whatever they call themselves, their budgets brought dread and fear and hopelessness. It was oppressive, and that's what the people said. That's what the people said. So, and you know, the danger to the Mahi Pauls and the Figueras and the other young ones, the honorable members, of course, the dangers of defending that kind of senselessness is why you are over there. You should have stood up at the time and told your party you are being ridiculous and hurting the poor man's pocket. But of course you didn't care because you weren't a poor man at the time. Mr. Speaker, I come to the APNU AFC manifesto of 2015-2020. And this is just education, and I'm going to do it very quickly. This is what they promised. These are the people who have all the answers for education, and they know how very important it is. We'll come to fiscal space in a minute. We will come to that. Mr. Speaker, they will develop appropriate non-monetary benefits, free land and duty-free concessions for teachers and university professors. Fail. None was given. Increase emoluments and improve working conditions for teachers. Fail. Provide an improved quality of education. Fail. Ensure equal access to education. Fail. Link education and curriculum design to Guyana's national development needs. Fail. Engage teachers and other stakeholders as active participants in the development of education in Guyana. Fail. Distinguish between male and female learning and device learning strategies accordingly with a view to reducing the male dropout rate. Fail. Establish a computer lab in every primary school and secondary school. Fail and fail. Ensure that the nutritional and transportation needs of primary and secondary students are met. Fail. Natural and agricultural sciences, math, engineering, and IT will become a major focus. Fail. Boost training and TVET so as to create businesses and jobs. Fail. Make the University of Guyana a major regional research university. Fail. Make the University of Guyana will actively seek foreign students. Fail. Seek assistance from donor countries for more educational professionals to work in Guyana for several years. They saw the speaker before me and said no thanks. Fail. Utilize the talents of the diaspora in education, training, and other areas of special needs. Fail. Mr. Speaker, that was the APNU AFC manifesto. And then they came back in 2020. And I will go to their 2020 manifesto just now. But Mr. Speaker, we live in a place where information is far freer now. And the honorable member said just now, the whole ministry knows that's not true, that we monitor whose pages people like, and we tell people who they can like. The honorable member's problem is when she makes any post, she gets 5 likes, and she thinks it's because we tell people not to like it. But her posts make no sense, and that is why she gets 5 likes. She fights with a PA in the ministry daily, and the PA's post gets 200 likes, and she gets 7, and that's the complaint, really. Mr. Speaker, let's come to where we were at education, because we have to understand that. And I read from you here, sir, the 1992 World Bank report on Guyana. And this is, I want to talk about this, Mr. Speaker, because we're hearing about fiscal space. Since independence, and I quote, "Since independence, the Guyanese government has repeatedly stressed its commitment to ensuring broad access by the population to social services. In the 1960s, Guyana's achievements in the education and health sectors were considerable. The illiteracy rate was amongst the lowest in the Caribbean and Latin America, and favorable health indicators reflected a well-designed healthcare system, emphasizing preventative and primary health. In the late 1960s, the government, APNU, AFC, PNC, whatever their name is, seeking to ensure equal access by all the population, undertook to fully subsidize education and health care. Private facilities in both sectors were absorbed into the public system. And I'll speak to you, sir. Now I'll skip some. The country's economic difficulties and the declining budget shares allocated to the sectors in the 1980s, however, meant that the government was unable to maintain quality levels while fully subsidizing use of these services. The reluctance to institute cost recovery, even as resource constraints became increasingly severe in the late 1980s, has thus led to sharp declines in the quality of services provided. Infrastructure has deteriorated, I mean school building, health centers, and all of that, to the point where it is severely dilapidated, and books and equipment are either not available, broken, or obsolete. These poor working conditions, coupled with low salaries, have encouraged skilled and qualified personnel to move out of the sectors or seek work abroad. But here's the killer. Here's the killer. This is what we're recovering from. By 1990, Guyana's education and health indicators were among the lowest in the Caribbean. What a shame. Took us to, I withdraw shame. Took us from the highest in the Caribbean and Latin America, and able to, anything they touch, turns to, you know what, sir? The Midas touch, I think it was one said. And the recommendation was made in 1993. As the Treasury cannot support these increases, the introduction of fees and other cost recovery measures will have to be considered. So it's only sensible people that will do this. Mr. Speaker, when we came into government in 1992, when we were voted into government in 1992, 94 cents on every dollar was being spent in debt. 94 cents. So imagine that. You get $1 and 94 got to gouge out to go and pay debt. When we left office in 2015, 23 cents. When we were voted out of office in 2015, 23 cents of every dollar was being paid on VAT. You had a lot of fiscal space that we didn't have. But from 92, if you look at the Hansard, and for those members who are wondering what that is the record of Parliament. The speaker before me wouldn't know what that is, sir. When you look at the Hansard, you will see that from 1993, Indra Chandrapal stood in this house and announced that old age pensions would be universal. That we would give every Guyanese once they're 65 and living here. This is when we were paying 94 cents on the dollar. We didn't have a drop of oil. We were a heavily indebted poor country. We were suffering with malnutrition and white mouth and a fleeing of the professional staff in the country. Had berry, and we made sure old age pension was universal. We built the Aishalton Secondary School. We built the New Amsterdam Hospital. We built Mr. Speaker, when we came in 1992, there were 3 secondary schools in hinterland communities. 3. By the time we left in 2014, without a drop of oil, we had built 14 secondary schools. So, Mr. Speaker, it is not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. We did a lot with a little. We left them with the best economic standing in post-independent Guyana, and they were unable to build not one secondary school. They were unable to build not one hospital, and they come here now and try to lecture us about good governance from a chat GPT speech. So, Mr. Speaker, it is not fiscal space that they lacked. It was the competence that they lacked. The APNU, AFC, PNC, and anything else they want themselves were incompetent are incompetent and are unable to lift themselves from that incompetence to serve the people of this country. And Mr. Speaker,
Incompetent bunch.
they also collected $90 billion a year more in taxes than we did. We didn't put VAT on water. We didn't put VAT on Crayola. We didn't put VAT on crayons. We didn't put VAT on health services. You had the best economic condition plus $90 billion a year more than the PPP, and you introduced 200 taxes on people. The donkey cart man, the snow court cart man, and then you sit down in here wonderingly and say, well, why are we here? And every now and then you venture over here to see how it feels. But you first have to develop a heart for service. You have to want to see people do better. So, Mr. Speaker, when we came in 2020, we were in the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Schools had been closed for 5 months, from March 2020 to August 2020, while the rest of the Caribbean was engaged in procuring laptops and getting their students online. The APNU-AFC was engaged in the healthy enterprise of trying to rig an election and steal people's votes. So they made no preparations for the children of this country. The children were home, the teachers were home. And then, Mr. Speaker, when we were President trying to get vaccines, Ministry of Education trying to get programs on the Learning Channel and to write worksheets and send out, this is the fear-mongering that started by the APNU-AFC. Coretta MacDonald, strongly against reopening of schools. Coretta MacDonald, November 11th, confirmation of students testing positive for COVID-19 at various schools is cause for concern and highlights the fact that the reopening of schools was premature, callous, and reckless, especially schools that are fitted with dorms. Then she continues, and I won't read this, sir, because it's really not worth. It should be in a bin, it should not be in the Hansard. But Mr. Speaker, we were steadfast. We are in government, we are leaders, the children of this country need us, and we carefully, with much consideration, by putting all the facilities in place that the health people had recommended, and we opened schools. And we were the first country in the Caribbean to start reopening schools. And what happened, sir? Guyana has stopped CXC and Cape repeatedly every year from then. That is what they were trying to take away. That is what happened when we reopened schools, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, I will go to the maths and English story. Let's go to the maths and English story, sir. And I want to be very careful here because I know that sensible people are watching me. And we should never do what you did and what we did. The PPPC will not rest until 100% of our children pass mathematics and pass English. We will not rest. But listen to this, Mr. Speaker. November 30th, 2016, Stabrook News. Only 14% of grade 6 students passed maths. You know who said this? Winston Jordan, honorable then member. Less than 50% passed English. And then we go on to say in October, a release from the Ministry of the Presidency, while not referencing the pass rate, they were hiding that, had said that the cabinet examined the unsatisfactory results as a matter of extreme urgency and grave national importance. This was November 30th, 2016. Hear what they did in November 28, 2017, again, the Stabrook News. Having recognized that 14% of the population passed, and having recognized that this is a matter of urgency, hear what they did 1 year later. He said This is the Finance Minister, Winston Jordan. He said that it was recognizing the need for a reform of the education system that caused the government to establish a commission of inquiry. Children failing, people don't know to count and read, and they established a commission of inquiry. Just to be clear, for completion of this picture, that was never submitted to the Parliament, never officially published by the ministry. We don't know where it went. We don't know where it went. We do know someone was paid for it. So when we want to talk about friends and family, let's talk about that. Jordan told the House that improving the quality of education will not be fixed by building more schools. They had the same position then. Same position, throw up your hand and send somebody to do an inquiry. Mr. Speaker, he went on, so that was 2016, 2017. On the 21st of August 2024, in the Antigua Observer, a sore point, CXC dismayed as regional CSEC math rate pass declines further. In other words, it is a Caribbean-wide problem. Today, Dr. Jerry Jailal, a man that we've hired to help us, we don't always agree, in fact, we often disagree, sent me an article from the Texas Monthly. Is there a better solution to our public schools math problem? That's not a Guyana problem. And if you think it is, then you're really not in tune and you don't have sense. This is not a Guyana problem. What have we done, sir? So that is the issue. We know we have a problem. CXC has said to us they're putting a solution in place and it will begin in September 2026. So what are we doing, sir? We immediately put and kicked into gear our own math intervention. What's that math intervention? We're giving to every 4th and 5th former scientific calculators, geometry sets, graph books, all the textbooks they need, and past papers organized by topic. We're sending in monitors to make sure teachers are teaching and finishing the syllabus. And we're going school to school and talking to the parents about their role. We are doing something about it. We are doing something to take us to the place of 100%. They recognized 14% passed in 2016. And by 2017, all they had to tell the nation was they were going to set up a COI. Look, but this is the reality, and I'm laying all of this over, sir. In 1990, the year that I believe the honorable speaker before me wrote CXC, 16.89% of the population passed mathematics. In 1990, 16% of the population wrote maths and 13% wrote English. Let's move on a little bit, sir. I believe the Honorable Mahipal may have written in 2006. We're trying to calculate their ages. 25% of the population passed mathematics and 39% passed English. We believe, well, I noticed Mr. Mahipal is regaling us that he was in that percentage, but the speaker before him, before me, seems unable to say that. Mr. Speaker, the best mathematics grade that this country ever got, save 2020, was in 2015 under my leadership in the ministry at 45%, and the best English grade was in 2024 under my leadership in the ministry at 70.84%. So, sir, we don't hide from problems, and we don't set up COIs nonsensically. This is the problem. We will deal with the problems. Let's talk about access, sir. And access is one of the promises we made. On November 30th, 2016, in an article in the Starbrook News that was titled, "Only 14% of grade 6 students passed math," Winston Jordan had this to say. In the area of capital improvements to the education infrastructure, Jordan said that government has budgeted over $4.7 billion on the construction, rehabilitation, maintenance of educational facilities throughout the region. He went on to say new secondary schools, I hope the public is hearing me, new secondary schools, he informed, will be constructed and rehabilitated at Christiansburg Secondary. You've seen it yet, Honorable Figuera? And at St. Rose's High School, which was demolished at the time, that took 5 years till we came into government to build it back. And at Good Hope and at Parfait. So this prevailing view that the honorable member just had, that it doesn't matter to build if you build schools, it's a view that is held philosophically by the APNU AFC. And if they were to get back in power, people cannot get schools to put their children in. Currently, sir, we have spent in the last 4 years $39 billion on infrastructure, 28 new secondary schools. And you know, I listened to my learned friend, Mr. Honorable Kazak, Honorable Mr. Vincent Henry. And this is what Vincent said yesterday, my dearest friend. And he said this at the podium. He said, we knew, he told this country yesterday, he said, we knew we needed schools at Karasabai and Morawinao. And we start up some classes. We said we can build a school later. Ask him if he didn't say that. We are in government, and within 2 years, we began to build a school at Karasabai, one of 7 that's going up in Region 9. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want you to hear that. For all of its existence, Region 9 has had 4 schools. They had St. Ignatius, which was built under the PNC, and then they had Anai, Sand Creek, and Aishalton, which was built under the PPP without a drop of oil, and while we were struggling as a hippie country. That's 4 schools for the entire existence, secondary schools of Region 9. We are currently building 7 schools in one 4-year term, 5-year term of this Irfan Ali government. So, Mr. Speaker, I want you to understand what that means, sir. She doesn't understand what it means. The Honorable squatter at the GTU, Ms. Coretta MacDonald, she doesn't understand what it is. What it means, Mr. Speaker, is that children who did not have secondary spaces to sit in, they didn't have a secondary school to go to, they didn't have a lab to go and do their science work, they didn't have a computer lab to learn their work, they're now getting schools. That's what it means. And we're no longer settling for teachers like yourself who are untrained and non-graduates. We're trying to make sure we train all the teachers and we give them the chance to become graduates at the University of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, we've built 60 nursery schools from scratch, 8 dormitories, 27 primaries. We are extending major extensions, 22 secondary schools, 15 dormitories, 28 primaries, 10 nurseries, and we are going on. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. We will not stop until every single child in this country can sit in a discrete secondary school. So you can't come here and say you love the people of Region 7, but fail to tell the people through these speakers and mics that we're currently putting up 4 schools in Region 7, Jawala, Philippi, Isano, Carao. You can't come here and fail to tell the people of this country that we're putting up 3 new secondary schools with dorms and teachers' quarters in all the hinterland communities. In Region 8, 1 at Maikobi, 1 at Monkey Monkin, 1 at Kopinang. You can't say you love the people of Region 1 and fail to tell them that we rebuilt the school that was burnt by arson, the Northwest Secondary, and that we are currently building 1 at Matthews Ridge, 1 at Waramuri, 1 at Hosororo, and 1 at Quebana. 5 new secondary schools in Region 1, when they've, for their entire existence, they've only had 3. Now, do we have challenges?
Understand now why you all are over there and we're over here.
Do we have challenges, sir? We have challenges. We're just forced to terminate a contractor at Hosororo because all of these schools, by the way, were publicly tendered in the newspapers and on the World Wide Web, and people were given a chance and evaluated as per law by the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, and these contracts were awarded. We have challenges. We're dealing with human beings. We have contractors who are not doing what they're supposed to do. We're about to terminate one now. We terminated somebody at Quebana But we don't take 5 years to do it. They broke down St. Rose's. It's not in hinterland, passing it whole day every day. Broke it down in 2017. It went up last year. So you left a whole generation of children in St. Rose's to be in a dilapidated place for 5 years, right in the center of Georgetown. And it is just without a conscience. Yes, sir.
Minister, with my conscience, I'll need to give you 5 minutes to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask my colleague be given much more time, obviously, but I'm restrained to ask for her to have 5 minutes more.
Continue, Minister.
I think I have 6 minutes, right, Mr. Speaker? We have, Mr. Speaker, CPC, the honorable member spoke of trained teachers. When I came into government in August 2020, we had 1 CPC and 16 satellites, and all were closed. Right now, we have 123 learning sites as a result of which, so this is the impact. That's the number of places we got to tell you now was the impact. We were able to graduate 4,378 teachers over the last 4 years alone. Over the last 4 years alone. And there's the honorable member representing teachers saying that they're of low quality. All of them could be cheated. Any test we put them to write. Mr. Speaker, these are the new sites in Region 1. So yesterday, my learned friend, and I like him because he's earnest. He seems to be interested in education, Mr. Ronald Cox. In Region 1, we have 33 centers. In Region 7, 20. In Region 8, 20. In Region 9, 30. The places they are most needed, sir. The places they are most needed. And I want to turn to the University of Guyana. I want to turn to the University of Guyana, Mr. Speaker, because I believe people want to know about this. Mr. Speaker, we spoke earlier because the Honorable Christopher Jones had raised very passionately and loudly about how they had free education and it was the PPP that took it away. But I remember, sir, that I read earlier from the World Bank report the University of Guyana was conceived by Chedi Jagan. And it was conceived by Chedi Jagan when he couldn't imagine that there was oil in the country. And it was held at the bottom house somewhere, so much so that Honorable Barry Ramsarans reminds me frequently that it was called the Jagan Night School. So the PPP conceived of university education in this country and were forced, when we were bankrupt as a country, to institute fees. Mr. Speaker, and when the World Bank, as one of the major financial institutions in the world that was helping us, had recommended that, I looked at the APNU AFC manifesto for 2015 and 2020, and in neither of those manifestos did you promise free university education. So don't come here now like a copycat and say you want to do it. You didn't even promise it. We promised it. As a result of which, sir, when the APNU AFC had the best economic position, when they had $90 billion more than we had in income, they hiked UG fees by 35%. Look, these are the articles and I will lay them over. What is the PPPC government doing? We have declared that the University of Guyana is going to be tuition free for all. That's correct. We have declared that there are going to be no facilities fees at the University of Guyana for any student. We have declared that those who have already paid for this academic year will get a refund for their second and third semesters. Those who have outstanding fees will be forgiven of that debt. That is what the PPPC has done to advance tertiary education. And look at goal. Look at goal, sir. 29,758 scholars. Guyanese scholars, 21,000 of which are women, are studying in foreign universities at no cost to themselves because the PPPC government is standing it. Mr. Speaker, look at GROW. GROW is for people who didn't get a chance to finish CXE for whatever reason because they didn't have a school in their village. They didn't get a chance to finish CXE. 2,825 people are studying on ground. I want to tell you the story. Mr. Speaker. There's a young girl that I met a few years ago. She's from the Essequibo Coast. She went to Aurora Secondary, and she came to town in 2014 by herself, left her family. And she worked at Footsteps for 2 years. And then she started working at the Ministry of Education in 2017. She has 3 siblings. She has to keep working. She had to keep working. She couldn't stop and go to the university. Who would pay her rent? Who would feed her? So she continued working. She is going to graduate this year with a Bachelor of Business Administration in Tourism and Hospitality Management, and I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder. We're going to lose her at the Ministry of Education, and I will give her the wings to go because this is good for her. And Mr. Speaker, she works closely with me. So when we heard about discrimination, I will say this, and I will challenge you to prove me wrong. When I went into the Ministry of Education, I met a secretariat with 28 people. And all I said was, we can't keep 28 people in my secretariat. The General Secretary is going to think I'm a diva. Everybody could go to different parts of the ministry. You decide who leaves. But I didn't let go of a single person who was hired by the APNU. And they continue to be in my personal secretariat up to today. Now let's compare what you did, what the APNU AFC did with the staff in my secretariat when I left in 2015. You fired people, you sent them into dusty corners, you changed their salary scale, and I could give you names if you want. I could give you names if you want. So that is your record, this is ours. Mr. Speaker, this year we are going to be spending more than $11 billion on the cash grant. The APNU's view, supported by the Chief Whip, my learned friend over there, and the honorable member who spoke before me. The APNU's view of the Because We Care cash grant is that it is a foolish waste of taxpayers' money. We don't hold that view. Every single child in this country, red, black, blue, yellow, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Georgetown or hinterland, will get the Because We Care cash grant, which is $55,000, which will inject $11 billion into the pockets of parents. So, Mr. Speaker, my friend spoke earlier about how the APNU introduced school feeding. Mr. Speaker, in Region 6, 2 schools had school feeding. Now 100% of the schools have school feeding. But I will wrap up now, sir, and tell you that we have just shared out in the whole Parliament a textbook list that we've given to each child. When you come here, when members come here and say they can't support this budget, they're essentially saying to all the young people of this country, we don't want you to have free university education. When you say you can't support this budget, they're saying to parents, we will snatch again from you the Because We Care cash grant. When you say you cannot support this budget, children's breakfast. When you say you cannot support this budget, you're taking away their textbooks. When you say you cannot support this budget, you're taking away the transportation we're providing for them. When you say you cannot support the budget, you're taking away all the special education needs classrooms and schools that we're currently building. When you say you can't support the budget, you're taking away the libraries from children in schools. So go ahead. Go ahead and tell this nation, again, who you really are. They're listening. I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. And now for the Honourable Member, Mr. Hemraj Rajkumar, former Minister of Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025, under the theme, A Secure, Prosperous and Sustainable Guyana, was presented to this Honourable House on the 17th of January 2025 by the Honourable Dr. Ashni Singh, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and public service. Mr. Speaker, it is no surprise that this year's budget is the largest in our country's history. The trend has always been that the current budget always exceeds that of the previous year. This 2025 budget, totaling $1.382 trillion, is 20.6% larger than budget 2024 and will be funded by revenue collected from taxes, sale of carbon credits, withdrawal from the Natural Resource Fund, and borrowing. Budget 25, like previous budgets, under this government, again places much more emphasis on public infrastructure development, while the elderly, poor, and vulnerable are given next to nothing. Mr. Speaker, we all expect that budget 2025 would be larger than budget 2024. The ordinary Guyanese expected that after 4 years in the fastest growing economy in the world, and in a country receiving billions of US dollars in oil revenue, government would have provided much more for them. Mr. Speaker, 2025 budget has been described as disappointing, confusing, and misleading. There is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that since 2020, the average Guyanese person has been struggling with the high cost of living. The ordinary man is finding it difficult to make ends meet. The high cost of food, transportation, and other necessities have been taking a heavy toll on the ordinary citizens. Government is well aware of this. It's an embarrassment in a country with the fastest growing economy, with the billions received from oil sector, or poor and vulnerable again handed pittance by this PPC government. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister informed this House that in 2022 and 2023, government had allocated $5 billion to address the cost of living concerns, which was increased to $7 billion in 2024, and now in 2025, $9 billion. He explained that the money would be used to ease cost of living pressure, basic cost of living pressure in 2025. Based on consultation with stakeholders. The question is, Mr. Speaker, how would the money be used to ease cost of living pressure? We do not know how many persons benefit in 22, 23, and 2024. It seems that there is no accountability, Mr. Speaker, of this money. Mr. Speaker, it seems that government must have foreseen that the increase in cost of living would be much higher in 2025 than in 2024. And the reason for the increase in the $9 billion, Mr. Speaker, the PPP government has $9 billion to spend as they please. An avenue for funding support for the government in this year's election. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister in his budget presentation boasted that this government was able to double old age pension in 5 years to $41,000 and increase public assistance to $22,000 per month. He compared this with the APNO AFC coalition provision of $20,500 for old age and $9,000 for public assistance when we left office. Well, we will recall, Mr. Speaker, that things were not as expensive as they are now. And of course, we didn't have the abundance of oil revenue as this government now has. Mr. Speaker, 2019 budget was $300.7 billion. Today, 2025 budget surpassed $1.3 trillion, backed by billions of dollars from oil revenue. Yet this government could only increase old age pension by $5,000 and public assistance by $3,000 per month. This marginal increase cannot and will not make a significant impact on the lives of the elderly and the less fortunate in these times of continued high cost of living. Mr. Speaker, our dollar had greater purchasing power in 2020 than when we left office than it has today. The elderly and the unfortunate are disappointed with these measures announced by the Honorable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister announced that income tax threshold increased to $130,000 per month. This is a welcome measure. He also informed that one parent will be allowed a non-taxable $10,000 for each child per month. These measures, Mr. Speaker, are aimed to further increase disposable income for our citizens. But how many persons will benefit from these measures? Mr. Speaker, in order to benefit from the increase in the tax threshold, one has to be receiving exceed of $130,000 per month. There are thousands of workers who will not benefit from this, since their salaries are below $100,000 and below, please, Your Honor. A parent of 2 children must receive a salary of at least $150,000 per month before his or her disposable income can be increased by $20,000. Mr. Speaker, the thousands of persons in the lower end of the salary scale will not benefit from these measures. Mr. Speaker, in order to combat the increase of cost of living foreseen in 2025, government is telling our citizens at the lower end of the salary scale that they have to work overtime and have a second job so that they can make ends meet. The first $50,000 from overtime and the first $50,000 from the second job will not be taxed. Mr. Speaker, an ordinary Guyanese, Mr. Speaker, the ordinary Guyanese are told that they have to work longer and harder so that they can make ends meet, not to get richer, but to make ends meet in this fastly growing oil economy. Reading the minister's presentation on Budget 2025, Mr. Speaker, my mind went back to a novel I read some years ago, Animal Farm by George Orwell. The ordinary animals working all day and even Sundays so that the pigs can have an enjoyable time. Mr. Speaker, it has been argued that Budget 2025, like previous PPPC budgets, focus on people and has equitable distribution of wealth to all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, this is far from reality of Budget 2025. This year, $209.3 billion will be allocated to further develop roads and bridges infrastructure. Billions of dollars will be placed in the hands of the contractor class, the friends, the family, and favorites of this government. The 2025 budget focuses on providing opportunities for and is designed to make the friends, the family, and favorite of this government much more richer than they are. While, on the other hand, our ordinary Guyanese are told that they have to work extra hours and have second job to earn a living wage. This is the disparity of Budget 25. It lacks balance and equality. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister, in his presentation, stated that government, with the aim of providing the best possible care for our citizens, a $10,000 university health care voucher will be available to each person to help finance basic menu of health tests. The minister also told us that in 2020, immediately after taking office, set about to rebuild the health sector aimed at leapfrogging what was otherwise incremental approach to increase the sector's capacity. Mr. Speaker, after 4 years and billions of dollars spent to increase the sector's capacity, the government cannot provide basic health tests for our people. It was pointed out to us that there were improvements in the health sector, which include establishment of diagnostic lab, dialysis centers in Region 2, 3, 6, and 10, as well as Georgetown and along the east coast of Demerara. With the establishment of diagnostic lab, why is it that basic tests are not done at the government institution? Is it that we no longer have the qualified personnel to perform these functions? Or is it that we do not have the equipment and materials and the basic materials for these tests? Mr. Speaker, government acquired 2 power generation ships, which along with GPL will meet the growing demands until completion of the gas energy project. The Guyanese public are treated to a removal of VAT on the purchase of electric generators. Is this a message, Mr. Speaker, that the government is telling us that we will experience extensive power outages in 2025, despite acquiring the service of 2 power generating ships? If we have the capacity to supply demand for electricity, then why are we encouraging our citizens to purchase generator by removing VAT? Is it that the power ships are incapable to supply the current demand of electricity? We are promised that when the gas energy project is completed, electricity costs will be reduced to 50%, by 50%. This promise will not be fulfilled in 2025, Mr. Speaker. And so the people want to know when to expect this 50% reduction in the electricity costs. People in Region 2 wants to know when the electricity bill will be reduced by half. Mr. Speaker, as we listen to the Honorable Minister delivering his Budget 2025 presentation, one gets the impression that the shortcomings of this government after 4 years in office was caused by the APNU plus AFC term in office from 2025 to 2020, and that the APNU plus AFC did nothing useful at that time. The Honorable Minister seems to have a short and selective memory. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister describing tourism sector in 2020 stated, domestically, it exacerbated 5 years of policy neglect and plunged the sector into unprecedented hardship. By April 2020, visitors' arrival plummeted, revenue declined to 46%, and 30% of tourism workers jobless. But, Mr. Speaker, just for the records, and the reminding of the Honorable Minister and the Guyanese public, I worked in the ministry responsible for tourism for a few months. When the APNU plus AFC government took office, a comprehensive plan was crafted to develop tourism in Guyana. By 2019, we had won 6 international awards. It was the APNU plus AFC that established Guyana as a tourism destination. In 2018, we received 183,000 visitors, injecting approximately $62.6 billion in our economy, being the second largest export earner at that time. More than the $13 billion earned in 2024, Mr. Speaker. Tourism contributed 22,000 jobs in 2018. The Honorable Minister, Walron, told us that in 2024, 2,000 jobs were created in the hospitality sector. 4 years after, and the capacity to increase employment has not increased. Mr. Speaker, there was indeed a drop in the arrivals in 2020. But before the lockdown, 86,000 visitors came to Guyana. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 was the cause of the decline in the tourism sector in 2020. No one can doubt, Mr. Speaker, that tourism under the APNU plus AFC was on an upward trajectory. We had developed a comprehensive plan for tourism sector, which included establishment and development of sports and agritourism along with the Hospitality Institute. We must not forget that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been accused of neglecting Gaisuku. We must not forget that the APNU plus AFC during its term of office would have injected over $32 billion to Gaisuku in an attempt to make it viable. We in Region 2 will not forget the construction and the commission of the 5.4 megawatts power plant at Guyana by the APNU plus AFC government. We still enjoy the Supanam waterfront, which was built by the coalition government at a cost of approximately $144 million. We cannot forget the Golden Beach Boulevard in the town of Bartica, built by the APNU plus AFC government in promoting tourism and local leisure. Mr. Speaker, the modern Moruca Bridge was built in the Moruca sub-region, was built by the APNU plus AFC at the request of the resident there. We must not forget that too, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Vincent Henry will remind us that in the town of Letem, got an asphalted road built by the APNU plus AFC. This too we should not forget, Mr. Speaker. The Guyanese citizen will recall that APNU plus AFC government had promised and delivered on the promise of reduction of VAT and the removal of VAT on food and other essential items. Mr. Speaker, the APNU plus AFC reduces 16% VAT that this PPP government placed on the people of Guyana, and we reduce it to 14%, bringing relief to all our citizens. We also remove VAT on food and other essential items. The reduction of VAT was a result of the request of the Guyanese people. We must not forget that as well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Singh, should have considered reducing VAT to at least 12% in an effort to ease cost of living pressure faced by our people today. This is a measure that would have benefited all our citizens. We had promised to establish passports and birth certificates and licensing office in Borbies, Esquip, and Linden. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say that those promises were fulfilled under the APNU plus AFC government. We must not forget that as well. Despite not having a large budget and excessive revenue at our disposal, the APNU plus AFC government spent on infrastructure, balancing it with human development. Mr. Speaker, over the past year, I've been calling for tertiary education to be made free again. This year, the right to free education will be restored, and our students will be relieved of a burden that was placed on their shoulder by this PPC government. My hope, Mr. Speaker, is that more students take the opportunity to educate themselves. Mr. Speaker, since 2022, I've been making a call for treated water for all the residents living in Essequibo Coast. We were told that the station at Undernaming would have been completed and residents would have received treated water at the end of December 2024. We are still waiting for this service. We are now told that the water treatment plant will be constructed at Charity to Walton Hall. To this date, we are still waiting the commencement of this project. Mr. Speaker, I've been asked by some citizens to report to this House that for almost 2 years, they have completed payment for house lots at Charity since payment was made. No communication to these persons as to when they would have received their house lots. These persons are waiting. I was also asked, Mr. Speaker, to inquire from the Honorable Minister to explain what he meant when he stated eligible person with NIS contribution ranging from 500 to 740 contribution will get a grant depending on the year of the last contribution was made. Person wants to know what is the cutoff year to be eligible for the grant. Mr. Speaker, we know that our hardworking public servants are to receive 8% increase in salary this year. What we don't know is when they will receive their increase in salary. What is preventing this government from paying the increase from the 1st of January? Mr. Speaker, the people need money to survive in these times of high cost of living. Money has been budgeted, so pay them now, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are at least 2 things this government should have done to mitigate the anticipated and continued rise in cost of living. One is to reduce VAT to 12%, and to do whatever it takes to increase the spending power of our dollar. Mr. Speaker, these are my observation and comments on Budget 2025, and cannot support the budget in its current form. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable members, I think this is a good time to take the next suspension.
We are a peaceful people, struggle is with struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow.